All right, today we are tackling an absolute beast of philosophy, Martin Heidegger's Being and Time. Now, this book has a reputation, right? It's known for being incredibly difficult, but also one of the most important books of the 20th century. But don't let that scare you. We're going to break it all down, piece by piece, and really get to the bottom of why it's had such a huge impact for almost a century now. So, with a book this dense, where on earth do you even start?
Well, Heidegger kicks the whole thing off with this quote from Plato, and honestly, it's the perfect way to begin. Just think about it for a second. We use the word is all the time, without a second thought. The sky is blue. This coffee is hot. I am tired. It seems so simple, right? We just get it. But what Plato figured out, and what Heidegger ran with, is that if you actually stop and ask, wait, what do we mean by is? What is being itself? Suddenly, we're stumped, we're perplexed. And for Heidegger, that feeling of confusion wasn't a dead end. It was a clue to a massive mystery that he thought philosophy had just completely ignored.
And that leads us straight into the first huge idea of the book. See, Heidegger's whole argument, his entire project, is based on this one powerful claim. For centuries, Western philosophy has been looking in the wrong direction. It got totally obsessed with studying specific things in the world. Rocks, animals, people, what he calls entities. But in doing that, it completely, totally forgot to ask the most basic question there is. What does it actually mean to be?
And for Heidegger, this was not just some nerdy grammar problem. No way. He saw this as the biggest philosophical blind spot you can imagine. We spend all our time talking about what different things are, but we never, ever ask what are itself is. It's wild when you think about it. He felt that the real meaning of being got buried under centuries of tradition, a tradition that basically said, oh, being, that's too general, too obvious, too empty to even bother with. And Heidegger was like, nope, that's where the treasure is buried. He wanted to grab a shovel and dig it all back up.
Okay, so if this massive question has been buried for 2,000 years, where do you even begin to look? Heidegger's answer was pretty radical for its time. He said, forget about studying rocks or trees or planets. To understand being, you have to start by looking at the one kind of being that actually cares about its own existence. The one being that can even ask this question. And, well, that's us, you and me.
Now, to talk about this special kind of being that we are, Heidegger needed a new word, so he came up with Dasein. The literal German translation is something like being there. But don't get hung up on that, because it means so much more than just a physical location. A chair can be there in a room, but a chair isn't Dasein. What makes us Dasein is that our own being is an issue for us. We worry about our lives, we dream about the future, we're defined by our past. We have to make choices that matter. Our existence isn't just a fact, like a rock's existence. It's a question, a dynamic set of possibilities.
And here's another huge break from a lot of philosophy that came before him. Heidegger tells us to ditch this old idea of ourselves as like a little mind or a soul trapped inside a body, like a brain in a jar just observing the outside world. He says that's just not how we experience life, is it? Our most fundamental state is being in the world. We are always already out there, wrapped up in things, dealing with stuff, involved with people. We're not detached spectators watching the movie of life. We're in the movie. We are participants right from the get-go.
So if we're always in the world, what does that really mean, day to day? How do we actually interact with stuff around us? Well, Heidegger says our normal, everyday way of seeing the world is totally different from the way a scientist might see it. And to explain this, he uses a brilliant, super famous example, the hammer. This is where he lays out this critical difference between two ways we see things. Most of the time, he says, we experience the world as ready to hand. Think about it. When you're hammering a nail, you're not consciously thinking, I am holding a wooden and metal object. No, the hammer just becomes an extension of your arm. It disappears into the activity of hammering. It's transparent. Its whole being is just for hammering. Now, the other way of seeing it, the scientific way, is what he calls present at hand. That's when you step back and look at the hammer as an object with properties, like its weight, its length, what it's made of. Heidegger's huge insight here is that ready to hand, this practical mode, is our default. It's the primary way we live in the world. So, what makes us switch from one mode to the other? When does our seamless world of tools suddenly turn into a world of cold, hard objects? Heidegger says it happens when something breaks. Imagine you're hammering away and suddenly the head of the hammer flies off. Whoa! The flow is shattered. Your activity stops dead, and all of a sudden, this hammer is no longer an invisible extension of your arm. It's just a useless, broken thing sitting there. You stare at it, you analyze it. It has become present at hand. And this, for Heidegger, is the big aha moment. The whole scientific, objective view of the world only shows up for us when our smooth, practical engagement with things gets broken.
Okay, this whole idea of practical, engaged living versus detached, theoretical looking isn't just about tools. It applies to our entire lives. Heidegger argues that we, as Dasein, can also exist in two basic ways: authentically, as a true individual, or inauthentically, by just kind of getting lost in the crowd. And this brings us to one of his most well-known and maybe most relatable ideas. I mean, think about how often we say stuff like, well, they say you should invest in this, or, oh, one doesn't wear that to a wedding. Who exactly are they? Who is this one? Heidegger has a name for this anonymous, public self we all fall into: das Man, which translates best as the they. The they is the world of doing what you're supposed to do, thinking what you're supposed to think. It's when we stop making our own choices and just do what they do. We basically hand over our responsibility to this vague, faceless crowd.
And he breaks down how the they takes over our lives into three main ways. First, there's idle talk. This is basically gossip, chatter, repeating things you heard without really understanding them or taking any responsibility for them. Think of just scrolling and retweeting. Then there's curiosity. This isn't a genuine desire to learn, it's that restless need to just see the next new thing, jumping from one distraction to another without ever really landing on anything meaningful. And finally, you get ambiguity. This is what happens when idle talk and curiosity mix together. Everything gets cloudy. You can't tell what's real and what's just noise anymore. And when we're trapped in this state, Heidegger says, our own unique self, our freedom, just kind of dissolves.
So that's kind of a bleak picture, right? If we're constantly getting lost in the noise of the they, is there any way back? Can we actually reclaim our own lives and live authentically? Heidegger says yes, but his answer is intense. It's profound, and for a lot of people, it's pretty unsettling. It all starts by facing the one thing about our existence that is absolutely, undeniably our own.
Just take a second and really think about it. What is the one possibility in your life that is 100% yours and yours alone? The one thing you can't pay someone else to do for you, you can't escape, you can't put off forever.
Yep, it's death. And Heidegger uses this really precise, kind of poetic phrase to describe it: our own most non-relational and not to be outstripped possibility. Let's just break that down real quick. It's own most because your death is uniquely yours. No one else can do it for you. It's non-relational because it's the one moment that cuts you off from all your relationships and projects in the world. And it's not to be outstripped. You can't get past it. It's the ultimate finish line.
Now, this is super important. For Heidegger, this idea of being towards death is not about being depressed or morbid. Not at all. It's about having the courage to look your own finitude square in the face. It's about fully understanding that your time here is limited. And here's the twist. He says that realization is the most liberating thing that can happen to you. Because once you really get that your existence has an endpoint, all the petty distractions, all the silly concerns of the they just lose their grip on you. Suddenly, your choices have weight. They matter. And that is what makes you free to live a life that is truly your own.
And you can see the difference right here. The inauthentic way, the way of the they, is to say, oh yeah, people die, one dies. We talk about it like it's some statistic, an event that happens to other people, out there somewhere. But the authentic way is to face the staggering reality that I am going to die. And when that hits you, it brings on what Heidegger calls anxiety. And he doesn't mean fear of a snake or a scary movie. He means this deep, profound feeling of being unmoored, of seeing that you are totally free and totally responsible for your one finite life. This anxiety, it's the ultimate wake-up call. It's what yanks you out of the anonymous crowd and forces you to stand on your own 2 feet as an individual.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. We've gone all the way from this ancient, forgotten question of what being is, to our unique existence as Dasein, through the world of hammers and the they, and all the way to facing our own death. So, what does it all add up to? What's the big takeaway for you and me, right now?
Well, what's so powerful about Heidegger is that this isn't just some abstract theory. It's basically a roadmap for living an authentic life. It's a 3-step process of waking up. First, you have to recognize just how much of your life, your thoughts, your desires are being run by the background noise of the they. Second, you have to truly confront your own finitude, your own being towards death. That's the jolt that pulls you out of the crowd. And then finally, from that newfound place of authentic awareness, you are truly free to choose your own possibilities and own your existence.
And all of this really leaves us with one last powerful question, a question that gets to the absolute core of everything Heidegger was talking about. If your life is a story, are you actually the one writing it, or are you just following a script that was handed to you by the they, by society, by expectations? The challenge he leaves us with is this: will you face the truth of your own limited time and finally pick up the pen yourself?